I love talking about this stuff. It's to me the most important thing. If I want to keep doing what I'm doing for the next 50 years, this is how I'm going to do it.
I hope you do, because I like big goals and I am chasing after you. So it's I started late, so you got a big jump on me. Small habits, big changes. Let's dive in. JLD is our guest today. It is John Lee Dumas. He's the founder and host of an award-winning podcast called Entrepreneurs on Fire. I have been involved and a member of Fire Nation, and also just a supporter in the wings of him for about the last decade. Now, JLD has turned Entrepreneurs on Fire into a media empire that generates over 1 million listens every month and 7 figures of net annual revenue 8 years in a row. These are big numbers. This guy's into tracking. His first traditional book was published, The Common Path to Uncommon Success, it's called. It's a modern day version of Think and Grow Rich with a revolutionary 17-step roadmap to financial freedom and fulfillment. Check it out. I don't have the hard copy, but I did listen to it. I have listened to it on Audible, so it's available in both, as well as the journals that he's created. A couple of them are still for sale. They're available. I have a number of them. They are fantastic for really keeping you accountable, but pushing you towards a goal at a nice clip of a pace. So definitely check out the show notes. JLD has been very kind with his time, and I just look forward to the discussion because we're going to dig a little bit into his personal life, which is very rarely heard, and hear a little bit about how he's created healthy habits, how he sustains those healthy habits, and 10 years into a podcast that literally is more prolific, there are greater numbers in his podcast than anyone else who's doing podcasting. So this guy has discipline. He has created a system that works for him. So John and his partner, Kate, they are the fuel, the passion, the fire behind Entrepreneurs on Fire. And they churn out, really, it's mind-boggling how much they do. And in order to do that, I attest that you have to have not only the professional discipline to pull it off, but the personal discipline. And John has that in spades. Without further ado, JLD is joining us today. Let's hear a little bit more about how he keeps his stable table. So you've been a real inspiration to me. Actually, I've been following you since you launched, just a couple months after you launched. It's been over a decade now. So you really were the impetus to get me going on a podcast, which I started in 2013. Thank you so much. And that sat on the back burner after a while and then came back in 2016, 15, and 16. So now it's finally happening. I'm so excited to have you. Wow. My podcast it looks at a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience, but also just busy folks. I love that you just grabbed a glass of water because that's where I'm going. I'm going to dig into a little bit of your personal habits because what many of us that follow you know is that you've been very, very transparent as far as your business accolades. All of the stats that are available on EO Fire for me, I can geek out on that all day long. You've been great from day one, showing where the money's coming in and what your efforts are and where you're going. I'm hoping that discipline, I'm guessing that it translates a bit into your personal life. And if you'd share a little about how you maintain, and Kate as well, because I know you guys are the dynamic duo, and she's off screen and you're on. So that's definitely, I wanted to include that because you guys share a household, and those habits can really, it can be helpful to have somebody in your corner holding up, if you guys are on the same page. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit about how you keep your personal wellness, because you've got some stamina. We're talking, there are very few people in the industry right now with 10 years under their belt. And I don't know anyone other than maybe Pat Flynn that has nearly 4,000 interviews. If people don't understand what that 4,000 episodes. If they don't understand what that means, that's like 77 years of a weekly podcast. So I could start now and I'd have to be 100 and almost 130 to catch up with you if I don't go more than one a week. So
that's
I'll let
actually
you have it.
why I have a lot more episodes than Pat, because he actually is weekly or a couple days a week at most. So he's been doing it for longer than me, but my episode count is way higher than his. So Pat and I have always been good friends, and we have a really friendly competition with each other to keep growing, our shows and our businesses to the next level. So I love him and I love what he's done. And it's always fun to interact when I can. But to kind of give you a quick rundown of the past 10 years, one thing that really resonated with me is I heard somebody on a show of mine say not too long ago, the healthy person wants 1,000 things. They have desire for 1,000 things. The unhealthy person wants one thing. And I think we both know what that one thing is. That's health. Because if you don't have health, what else can you desire? Because nothing else is worth it until you are healthy, at least to a certain level. And so for my first 5 years of my business, I was all business. I was so focused, nose to the grindstone, hands on the keyboard, like just making the show the best that I could, building the business, courses, books, journals, webinars. I was just doing so many things. I was working a lot. And I wasn't neglecting my health. There's one of the journals right there, sweet. And I wasn't neglecting my health. I wasn't like completely just like not doing anything. I was still like going for runs when I could, and I was still eating pretty decent. But I looked at myself and I'm like, man, you're like 36 years old, and you look like you're 36, which a lot of people would be happy with that. But I've always had a baby face, and right now I'm really scruffy, so I don't quite have the baby face I can when I shave. But I was like, man, come on, you can be better, because I was starting to feel a little more lethargic. I was starting to not love the way that I looked or that I felt on a day-to-day basis, as much as I knew that I could. So it was really that day, about 5 years in, I said, you know what, I'm going to start just committing to greatness, not just on the business side, but on the health side as well. So I hired a virtual trainer. This is somebody that I get on Zoom with. It's been 7 years now. We've worked out together every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 7 years. Of course, there's been a couple times where I've been traveling overseas that we haven't got together, but every time I'm here in my home, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're hitting the gym together. I built out a gym here. I committed to eating better. I rarely drink. I mean, I do on special occasions, but it's rare now. And I've never done anything beyond that anyway. So that was kind of my one toxic vice that I did have. I was, a more consistent drinker back in the day. And then I just started seeing everything starting to really add up in a good way. And I guess one thing I forgot about is I prioritized sleep above everything. When you're like in your 20s and early 30s, like going to bed at 9 p.m. seems like the most depressing thing in the world.
Almost impossible too.
Almost impossible and just depressing. Like, who wants to be a person that goes to bed at 9 p.m.? That's sad. Yeah. That's kind of the mindset of a lot of 20 and 30-year-olds, mine as well, by the way. I had to shift that mindset. I had to say, sleep is the top of my pyramid. Everything I'm going to do is going to prioritize sleep. And then the next priority that I have below that is nutrition. And then the next priority below that is exercise. They're all incredibly important and are mandatory, but it's in that order because, for the last thing about exercise, people are like, no, exercise is more important than nutrition. And maybe it is for you, but I live by the phrase that you can't out-exercise your mouth. And I see a lot of people that exercise their face off, like they exercise so much, and they eat like crap, and they still look like crap because you can't out-exercise your mouth. So I prioritize my sleep. I want to be in bed by 9 p.m., hopefully asleep by 9:15, 9:30. I want to sleep a full 8+ hours. I have an Oura ring that tracks my sleep, and I really prioritize that. And when I see that I'm not getting good sleep, I make the correct adjustments to get back to where I need to be. I really focus on nutrition. My first, breaking of my fast every morning is an epic smoothie with all the right, minerals and nutrients. And it's such a good way to start the day. It's so healthy. And then I try to have a very healthy dinner as well. And I treat myself. I had some Ben & Jerry's last night. I'm not trying to be perfect over here, but I'm trying to be really good and still enjoy life and still enjoy eating and still enjoy, all the things. So, nutrition's that number 2 step, and then exercise, it's just every day for me. It's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm hitting the weights with my trainer. The other days of the week, I'm focused on, I walk a minimum of 6 miles every day. That's 10,000 steps, by the way, with my dog. Me and Gus, 3 miles in the morning, 3 miles at night. It's a commitment. I've got a cold plunge. I have an infrared sauna. I take Epsom salt baths. And by the way, I do all this stuff because it's just me and Kate. If and when we have kids, my time will become a little more, pulled in different directions, and some things may need to go. And I'm aware of that. So other parents that are out there saying, hey, like, I just don't have that kind of time to sit in a cold plunge and an Epsom salt bath and an infrared sauna, I get it. And I may not forever as well, but I do now because that's the life that I've created. And so I take advantage of that and I focus on that. And right now at 43 years old, I'm as healthy as I've ever been. I'm not gonna say I'm healthier. Like, I've had some great years in the past, but I'm truly as healthy as I've ever been. And it's because of what I just shared.
I am, you're preaching to the choir over here because we're actually on very similar paths. We have a little bit of a background that's the same with a PB stomping ground. The discipline, I think maybe you got in the military, transferred over. Maybe you had it beforehand. Yeah, there you go.
Hurt. Did not hurt.
That's right, as a veteran. But all of those things are, I agree with everything you've said. You're 8, 9, 10 years into your journey, maybe 5 solid years, but since you've hired a trainer, it's been almost a decade. If you could go back to kind of when you were just starting that, just quickly say, for somebody coming on right now, they're not going to jump into their wellness journey where we're at. I've been on it for 30 years. You've been going on it for a long time. What was kind of the first, maybe a tip that you can give to someone in each of those categories? Like, how did you get going drinking water? I noticed you're great on your hydration, and it's nice to be in a warmer climate like San Diego or Puerto Rico because you get hot, but we don't have always a thirst reflex, right? So how'd you get going on that, or how do you track it maybe? I know you're big on tracking because of the business, and also I have several of these. These are great. They keep you going, pushing towards that next milestone. How do you track, you and Kate, your household of like hydration? Obviously you got a trainer to keep you accountable for exercise, but how do you meal prep? And maybe one tip about going to bed at night. I know we're short on time, but you're an expert.
Yeah. So for hydration, listen, I mean, 80+% of our body is water. I mean, we need to just recognize that fact. When you recognize that, you're like, why am I going to be drinking soda? Or why am I going to be, putting like crap fluids in my body, like alcohol? Like, what's my body going to do with that? Like, your body needs water to survive. I drink, I love coffee. I love tea. I drink both of those things as well. Obviously, mostly water. I'm a big 4 Sigmatic person, so I drink mushroom coffee every morning. I really like that.
Nice.
The lion's mane is
lion's
in there,
mane
for the mushroom side of things. But for me, it's like, listen, if there's something within arm's reach, and I get into the habit of drinking, and as long as I keep that within arm's reach, I'm habitually reaching for that every few minutes, every 5 minutes. And when I don't, something goes off like, hey, your habit is to drink something and you haven't done that. So I get ping, ping, ping. Then it's just like, oh yeah. And then I drink. So it's like, you have to lay down the railroad tracks in your mind habitually to make it happen. And then it becomes a reality. And like, it's
right,
really that clear. Just like you've done with the Freedom Journal, like you've laid down the tracks. And so you understand what it takes to accomplish a meaningful goal in 100 days now, and you're on multiple of those, so you know what that looks like. And so for me, it was number one, understanding the importance of hydration and of water and of what that means for my body. Okay, now it's so obvious how important it is. How do I make it a habit? And the habit is just have something next to me, and then for a couple weeks, having an alarm go off every 10 minutes that said drink water. And then I did that for 2 weeks, and it wasn't something I had to do for the rest of my life, because after 2 weeks, the railroad tracks were laid down. The habit was there. They made it happen. And then let's jump to sleep real quick, and then we can end however it ends.
Yeah, sleep is where I was going. Yeah.
People tell me all the time, John, I'm just a night owl. I'm just not a morning person. I say to them, listen, wake up for 14 days in a row at 5 a.m. And then on day 15, tell me if you're still a night owl. And the answer will be no. You'll be so looking forward to bed at 8:30, 9:30 p.m. that you will be crawling into bed with a smile on your face like I do every night, a book I'm looking forward to read just a couple pages of before I pass out. And then I'm up in the morning, at 5:30, at 6 a.m. Like I'm waking up with the sun, I'm waking up naturally, and then I'm going for my walk right away. So when it comes to sleep, again, it's back to just like same with hydration. Understand the importance of it to you and your body. That's the first thing. You got to educate yourself, because otherwise it just feels like it's a job, it's a chore. No. So like, that's why I, listen to Sean Stevenson's podcast. That's why I listen to the Cabral Concept, Dr. Cabral's podcast, because I learn about the importance of these things. And then I know that it's so worth implementing it. And then I just come up with a plan, just much like I preach in the Freedom Journal, a SMART goal. And then I just execute on that goal. And again, for me, it was forcing myself to wake up super early for 14 days in a row, not allowing myself to nap, and then just being really tired at the end of the day and wanting to go to sleep at a normal hour. Because a normal hour, by the way, for the last 50,000 years of Homo sapiens has been after the sun goes down.
That's right.
The circadian rhythm is there for a reason, and I go to sleep. And I wake up and I feel great. I got a 97 sleep score like 4 days ago on my Oura Ring. It was almost a perfect night's sleep.
Lovely. I track with the Whoops, but I've heard wonderful things about the Oura Ring. I'm glad you mentioned it. Tell me really quick how your household is. Do you have a chef, or do you guys prepare your meals? How's a healthy nutrition?
Joys in life is actually cooking, which is super fortunate for me. She loves doing her workout in the morning, having her work day, and then going for a walk in the evening, and then coming back and just making a meal. Like, she enjoys the process. It's a meditation time for her. She's listening to a podcast while she's doing that. She's cooking up a meal. She enjoys serving that meal. So that's just her. Like, if she was more like me, we'd have a chef, because it wouldn't happen. But, she enjoys doing it. I love the food that she cooks. I much prefer a home cooked meal. So we're just a good partnership like that.
I love that. Thanks so much for sharing that, because I know it's not always the questions people are asking about your personal life.
Which is a good thing.
Right. But I appreciate you sharing, because part of the podcast for me is educating people on there's a myriad of ways to do things, and everyone's kind of their own special snowflake, and they're going to find their own way. But if they hear something from you or from me or from someone else who's practicing, they may be like, hey, that could work for me, and they try it on. So I appreciate you sharing. I know it's not your normal job, but thanks so much for your time. Anything else you want to add before we close up?
No, just I love talking about this stuff. It's to me the most important thing. If I want to keep doing what I'm doing for the next 50 years, this is how I'm going to do it.
I hope you do, because I like big goals, and I am chasing after you. So it's I started late, so you got a big jump on me, but I like that potential. I love what you're doing. I got all your stuff in the show notes, so everybody can check out. Thanks so much for your time, and keep killing it.